Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Have you had trouble with the legal system? Have you been battered by it? Have you gone and been taken to court or tried to take somebody else to court and then found it's all gone nasty, it's all gone the wrong way round, or it's just been too daunting to cope with? And what you need is an angel to come down and sort it all out for you, or at least help you along the way. Well, I'm very thrilled to be able to talk to an angel. It's Sandra from Police Scotland Angels, and she's here to tell me what they do and how they help people who've been failed by the legal system. Sandra, welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. Hi.
It's very lovely to have you, and it's on the show, of course. But it's also nice to find somebody who's in a different. Because I often talk to people in England or sometimes in America and what have you, but up there in jolly old Scotland, and you said to me you're right up north in Fife, which is
the kingdom of Fife.
I beg your pardon, the kingdom of Fife, even better, fantastic. Everybody likes to be part of a good kingdom, a good one, as opposed to the one that we often find ourselves in. So Sandra, Police Scotland Angels, how people have been failed, you come to the rescue like an angel, presumably with your fluttering wings, you come and sort people out. So tell me what you do then, and what sort of things that people get stuck, what kind of things people get stuck in with.
Let me tell you a wee bit about my background, Richard.
Please do.
I was born into a very dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional. I was caught up in the care system myself, the social work care system, and I was caught up in the criminal justice system as a teenager myself.
Oh, right. Gosh.
And later on in life, 17 years ago, I wrote a book about it. So I came to Police Scotland Angels and various other things I'd done with lived experience, but I went away and studied law,
Right, yes.
And I'd done that because I had a daughter 18 years ago, and her father wanted custody of her, and not custody, contact, sorry.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever heard about the children's welfare hearings in England or Scotland. I don't know if you ever have.
But I'm sort of aware because people do tell me, they told me how their kids have been stolen from them and things like this. And it's
trafficked, it's absolutely horrendous.
Yes.
You can get into the Iraq inquiry, but you cannot get into a child welfare hearing.
Isn't that incredible?
No, it's actually a very good money-making spin.
Yeah. Yes.
So when my daughter in 2005, these legal papers were served on me, and by sheriff officers.
Right.
And I was meant to be a cut and shut case of 6 weeks. And you'll have to excuse my front bottom tooth here because my crown fell off. Not the crown through my head, but the crown through the front of my tooth. So it's really bad. But anyway.
Don't worry.
But anyway, so my case was to be a cut and shut for 6 weeks.
Yes.
And when I got into these courtrooms, and it was absolutely horrendous, Richard. It was absolutely horrendous. And then I got my local MSP involved, and I actually got sent to prison twice for contempt of court because I would not hand my child over to an abuser.
Right. Yeah.
So now in Scotland, I don't know about England, but civil imprisonment is meant to be abolished, right?
Civil imprisonment.
Civil imprisonment is meant to be abolished. Now, remember, I was in the court system for civil proceedings.
Yes.
What they do is they flip it and it becomes quasi-criminal. So they flip the proceedings, so then it switches over to criminal. If you are not adhering to what they're saying. Now, remember, you're in a shut room, you've got absolutely no transparency, and people are being browbeaten to comply with your unlawful, requests. And so I actually exposed in the Scottish Parliament, Cathy Jameson was the Justice Minister then, because in England, you have a Kafka system that deals with, the children welfare hearing down here. in Scotland, what do we have?
Mm.
Solicitors assigned by the sheriff. So they become a dual role. And then they become child welfare reporters,
Right.
right?
Right.
Which
Okay.
there's a conflict of interest in,
Yes.
because they are not qualified or regulated through the Law Society to do this role. So the sheriff has a list. There's no regulation or governance to them. And I put freedom of information in, and we're going back 15 years ago. And the money that legal aid was spending on this was at millions and millions of pounds. They were getting £3,000 to £4,000 per report. And of course, the sheriff took the recommendation
Mm.
of these solicitors who had a dual role. Now, when I got jailed in the first instance, because I wouldn't go to court, because I seen it was just a ruse. It was just, and I started studying law at Napier University, because I says I have to go away and learn these systems and these words, because they're trying to take my child, you know.
Yes. Yes.
So when the very first time, I didn't go to court for about 5 or 6 months, and this was 2009, the 4th of November. The police came to my door with my daughter's father and two sheriff officers, dragged me out my house, dragged me up to the court, the local court up the road, and I got a closed hearing, and I got no right to representation. And the thing that what had happened beforehand, a sheriff on the bench had signed a white piece of paper pretending it was a warrant. And when they previously came to my door, I says, you can get lost with that, because it's not an authentic warrant. It's not certified. It's not stamped, But stupidly, that sheriff put his wet ink signature to it.
Oh, right.
Now, they don't use wet ink signatures.
Mm.
They use, this is an authenticated signature through a computer. A computer can't give you a signature,
No.
So the sheriff then went away, strangely, when I phoned the court and says, why is people turning up at my door with white pieces of paper to take my liberty away?
Mm.
And he went on holiday, or he went off sick for 2 or 3 weeks. No, he was told, because that was an unlawful piece of white paper. So I started going to solicitors and saying, is that a warrant? Is that a warrant? They were going, well, maybe. I says, well, would you let somebody take your liberty away with that piece of paper?
Yes.
And, the collusion and the closing of ranks, And Richard, what we have to be very, very mindfully is that all these cosy words that we have that make the legal system sound so care bears and care sharing, partnerships, engagement, it sounds like these people care about us. These words mean the total opposite. The partnerships, it's, where do you have a partnership is usually in a couple. Where do you have engagement? Usually with a couple,
Right.
These words are very, very important, because it gives people a false subliminal to think that people are caring about them, and it means the total opposite. I've seen people in court being, held in contempt of court for not engaging with the social work. No, it's your right. I would say it's you're not consenting.
Yes.
It's not about engagement, but it's the modification in language that people don't understand. Even the thing that, when we talk about the police and and I know I'm going off on a wee bit of a tangent here, but stand under, it means understand, stand under. What does welfare mean? Fair, well. Reverse the words.
Right. Yeah. And this is I'm learning this all the time in this last year's journey of understanding what's going on, and the deception, the lie, and the fraud. And that's obviously been going on to you. So can I just ask you just a basic question, that when you were taken to court, was that a civil court that then became a criminal court?
Because I would not comply. It was civil proceedings,
Yes.
and then it overspills to criminal proceedings. So it's then in Scotland, it's called quasi-criminal.
And do you and is that with a jury?
No. Listen,
I didn't think so. I didn't think so.
if you can't get the public into the hearing, I didn't think they're going to give me a jury. This
Right.
was, I affronted the court because I went to the Scottish Parliament. So it would come up the jurisdiction. So I started asking questions, and I was studying law as well. Now, on my course, when I was on the legal course, it was an LLB that I was taking. I've always been a bit of a sort of challenger and whatever, and I can see things quite differently. Now, when I was on my law course, um, one of the senior lecturers there in charge of the law department, I put a complaint in about him and it was upheld. He was writing grooming material about boys and it was upheld. And he was a parliamentary advisor.
Wow.
Now, and my partner at the time says to me, he's going to come for you. 6 months down the line, he came for me and says, you're plagiarising my work, right? But I had to do what I had to do, you know. So I got 3 years of law and I got a diploma in law. They gave me a diploma. But honestly, and I've got all the paperwork to back this up, he was a horrible, horrible, horrible man. And they moved him to another university. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I mean, I don't quite understand. You're on a course, and then he's coming back saying you're plagiarising. I mean, you're on a course using the material that the course is providing, presumably. I mean, how would a course possibly work if you couldn't use the material that they're teaching you?
well, I knew he was going to come for me because I had exposed him and the complaint
Yes.
was upheld. So that's how it plays out.
Right.
And I just thought, okay, then. And at that time, I had been in prison. When I went to prison the first time, it was very
I can
traumatic,
imagine.
right? I was only in a year two in my law course because I'd done an HNC first, Higher National Certificate, and I was in year one in my LLB. The second time I went back in, which was July 2011, is I had the law with me. I had the
Right.
law with me. So I says, right, I want the 2006 prison regulations, and here's what I want, blah, blah, blah. And then I says, I want to sit my law exam in prison. And they could not get me out there quick enough. They says, do not tell any other prisoners that you're studying law, you know. And and these poor girls, honestly, it was horrendous. They were in there they'd been victims of the system, mental health problems. Some of them even wanted to get back in here. And the most touching thing they'd done when I left is they made me a wee card out of nothing that they had. It was really, really touching. And I kept in touch with people for many years who had been incarcerated very, very
Mm.
wrongly.
Mm.
So anyway, and I got my own cell. And previously, I went to see the Justice Minister the day before I went to prison because I had my bag packed. I was ready to go. I knew I was going back, you know.
Mm.
And I went to see Kenny McCaskill at his office, and I says, you know, and then he started questioning me when I was starting to ask him really pertinent questions about why I was going to prison and how this was in my child's best interest and that. He says, do you pay council tax? I says, how do you? You know, and this
Mm.
is they could, and he says, I've got every faith in the judiciary. I says, well, you'll be the only one. You know, I says, because honestly, and he just, and I swear not, Richard. 2 days later, he was outside my cell. He made a visit to Cortonville Prison, and that was to say, we are the establishment, and you bow out to us. And that
Really?
was him making his presence. you know. So, and look, they have unlimited resources, unlimited money, unlimited time, and they will do what they need to do to actually save whatever they believe in. And
Mm.
it's certainly not the law you
Mm.
know. So people like me, for an underprivileged background and whatever, they didn't want in law. They didn't want, people like me and people who challenged them and people who had them running off the bench and everything like that. But I
Yes.
got a lot of my learning, Richard, from my childhood because I had to defend and attack my existence in childhood, my survival.
Yes.
And when you're in a courtroom, you need to know what's coming at you. You need to know what's coming across that table. So then I was like I was reenacting, but and people in my college course and my university says, they seen me in court one day because I was fighting my daughter's case myself. I didn't take any legal aid or nothing. I did in the first beginning. And I says, if this is my legal aid, I'd be as well just defending myself, throw
Right.
myself at the wolves.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And one girl says to me, Sandra, I can't believe that you let him speak to you like that. That was the other solicitor. I says, did I get my result? I says, it doesn't matter. Don't go on what they teach you in the books. This is the real arena here.
Yeah.
Do not show any vulnerability. It's dog eat dog. Now moving on, and then I became my daughter's case, and wait for this, my daughter's case went on for 9 years. 9 years.
No, 9 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How did it? What was the result?
I never handed her over. I handed her over at very minimum to her father. Now, I'm in case law. I'm in case law. I made case law.
Right.
And it says that I was manipulative and everything else. I says I was taught by the best. No, I was taught by the best. Because I would not hand my daughter over. They manipulate, and I was in the court of session one day, which is the highest civil court in Scotland, and I was meant to hear all this, Richard. There was two solicitors behind me, and I heard, "What are you here for?" The chit chat in the gallery and things. What are you here for? I'm here because the sheriff set somebody up. I thought, I didn't, we're so naive to think that these people didn't do that, and it ends up at a superior court. Now, Richard, what happened in my case is I had some people in the judiciary respected me because bear in mind, they've got their in-house fighting, and they have to do very, very dark things to get to places where they've got to go. So some people respected me, and one solicitor says, I felt sorry for you. I says, didn't feel sorry for me. I didn't want your pity. Didn't feel sorry for me. But anyway, John Forsyth, because they were John Forsyth is a legal correspondent in 2011, and I had all my papers, freedom of information, subject access request, the whole paper trail, and I've still got up in my attic to this day, because I knew this would come out through time. Because see, if it's a child thing, they actually silence you for speaking about it. So the media will not, the mainstream media will not pick up anything much anyway, but they silence you. They don't let you talk about it. You're compromising the child. You're not compromising the child. You're compromising their revenue generation, and their system. That's what you're compromising.
Yes.
So anyway, John Forsyth, a legal correspondent, and I had, and he came in late to my case because they were going to jail me for 2 years because the court of session can for contempt of court. They were going to jail me for a further 2 years. They just totally I was so challenging. But Richard, this was my daughter. This was my child.
Well, of course, you're going to fight for your daughter, aren't you? Of course you are.
It was, and I had seen how they made white pieces of paper orders to pick fast people's locks and remove their children. I thought, they're not doing that to my child,
No.
So anyway, I stood there, three and I stood in the court myself, and John Forsyth came in late, and of course I got my anchors up, and I thought, he might be for the Sun. I thought he was for a rag or something, a rag newspaper, and then I realised, and then as soon as they came back on the bench, because they were considering, fear factors, if they were going to jail me again for 2 years, and then they came back on the bench, and honestly, they had more faces than a town clock. The whole thing, well, Miss Gallagher, they went, because they knew the legal correspondent was there, and that must have been in-house that somebody tipped them off.
Right.
That I was up that day, because these were all closed hearings, and they say, and then they says, okay. They says, well, you go back to the lower court and we'll be monitoring you and observing you, and you adhere to the sheriff's order, blah, blah, blah. And so anyway, outside there now, in the court of session in Scotland, which is the highest superior court, you've not got Mickey Mouse you've got really good audio. It'll be voice recognition audio and things outside in the corridors. And John Forsyth, the correspondent, says to me, I've been following what you're doing, Sandra, for 5 years, trying to expose these solicitors and trying to expose the corruption that's going on. And I handed all my documents to him underneath the CCTV. And I says, well, you can take that because it's no good to me. No good to me now. And give me, and the only reason I got off with that day is because John Forsyth intervened, or I would have been
Wow.
in jail for 2 years, you know. So
What? What?
how would that have been in the best interest of my child?
Well, of course, it wouldn't have been.
You know?
No.
So, and Richard, I didn't have freedom of information at the end of my case after 9 years, how much the solicitors, and they've got a QC. Every time I'm in court, it was a QC then, it's a KC now. But a QC, every time I'm in court, they have two solicitors against me. Always two. Because, but the thing is that that was £66,000 they paid for my daughter's father and legal aid, and at the beginning I got paid £7,000 and I took no more. You know, you know, and that was honestly, this child welfare stuff is the biggest scam that you will ever, and people's children are being legally trafficked.
Yes.
And it's horrendous. And mothers, fathers, rents, pay rent is the word, pay
Yes.
rent
Parent. Yes.
are
Parent.
really, yeah, are really being attacked. And I've seen some horror on website as well, Richard, in 10 years ago, a child's voice for justice. If I was going to get legal representation, that one of the conditions was take your website down. I says, no,
Really.
no, no. I says, no, I'll not take my website down, you know. And I had a QC who was going to take me on. They says, Miss Gallagher, have you got contrition to the court? I says, absolutely not. I says, absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No, no. I've not contrition to the court. And I says, thanks for your time. He says, I can't help you. And I says, I can't help you either. Because the thing is this is, so that got me. So I done 4 years at law when I was at university, and I got a lot of my when I was and lived experience. I had been
Yes.
on the wrong side of the law when I was a teenager. I was caught up in the system. I
So
wrote
you've
a
seen
book
it.
17 years ago.
Yes. So you've seen it at its most roughest, by the sounds of it, and its most aggressive, which clearly has given you an enormous insight into what goes on, and then presumably this is how you now using that knowledge to help other people who are in equally difficult situations.
Well, the Police Scotland Angels was formulated and just off the back of the pandemic.
Right. Okay.
It was so 4 years came together. Now, over the last 6 months, we've had terrible infiltration. With people trying to destroy people who were volunteering for us, and people who really they took our website down. Honestly, but that's the things you have to have a revamp, and we've tried to deal with this the best way they could. They tried to you bring up about my book. I wrote my book 17 years ago. I put everything in the public domain, what my life had been about. And my life. I've had the life of a cat. I've had 9 lives. And I'm still here now. Play Scotland Angels was formulated. I was sitting for about 6 months in the house watching this TV and watching these lawyers, these human rights lawyers in their cosy houses with their Zoom calls and things, and going, yeah, you can't go out and protest and things like that. But they were sitting there and you couldn't access any of them or anything. And you notice with these lawyers and these fonts of all education, they always have a big load of books behind them, eh?
Yes.
And I thought, I wish you would access these books. But anyway, so we got out to, I thought, I've had enough of this. I've had enough. So in 2020, there was a rally in Edinburgh, and it was going to the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon's house up the Canongate and the Royal Mile and things. And I met some great people. And I thought, okay. So the next rally, a protest that was outside the Scottish Parliament on the 11th of January 2021. So I got this great big banner made, and it was great. And I thought, because this was when the big V's were just coming out, the big
Right.
things
Yes.
you put in your arm,
Yeah. That's it. I know what you mean.
you know, And so I got this big poster made, and I put, stick your V up your,
We know where.
I inject civil liberties and human rights. Right? So
Yeah.
walk down to the protest with the banner rolled up under my arm, and the video's on the homepage of Police Scotland Angels of my arrest. But that morning, strangely, a solicitor friend, I thought I better email him, and I better tell him that I'm going to a protest. Um, it's just at the very bottom, at the very bottom. There it's there. That's my arrest at the bottom. That one
Is
there.
that one there? That
Yeah.
one there.
Yeah.
And
Um.
I'll leave a link just so everybody knows of your website here, Police Scotland Angels, in the description, so they can go and check out that video, as well as everything else that you do, of course.
So what happened is, I emailed a solicitor, criminal solicitor friend of mine, and I says, "Listen, I'm going to a protest today," and thank God I did do that because it was to my benefit, And
Right.
I actually typed up a contract with the police in case I did get arrested, because I didn't want to engage with them, you
No.
know. So I had this on me, and then when I got down there was about 20 protesters and 250 police. And I said, so it must be a police PR stunt here today,
Yes.
because it was only 20 protesters.
20 protesters and 250
50
police.
Right?
Golly, what other crimes are going on that they're not investigating or protecting people to go to a protest where there's only 20 people? I mean, it's madness.
Just remember, Richard, that was all part of it. So they'll pay a quarter of a million or a million to keep the thing alive, so that subliminally think about it, they'll do that. So that was worth it, because they knew what was coming at that stage. So anyway, and you'll see in the video now, and then they seem to target me because I had, and the press was saying, I was hearing all this with cameras and things, and I thought, God, it's quite frightening when you're actually, because it is quite frightening. And I thought, and then, this police guy says to me, he says, you'll see it in the very start of the video, he says, I'm here about your health. I says, I'm not convinced, pal. I says, you've got Tectra in your ear. Now, do you know what Tectra is?
Tectra, no. What's
right.
that?
This is a campaign that Police Scotland Angels are doing just now. So Tectra is the earpiece, the frequencies that the police have gone through their blood-brain barrier. Barry Trower advised the police 15 years ago that it's like a microwave going through their brain. So shop workers have got it as well now. So these earpieces that they're listening to, so this frequency airwaves are going through their blood-brain barrier. Now, 11 people in Fife have died. It's all in this report. I'll send you the link to it as well. Barry Trower's report. He was advising the police. So the Tectra is called the Tectra. That's what they use. For to hear what commands to take and blah, blah, blah. Yes. Also, shop workers are using it now. Now, I went into a police station about 6 months ago. I spoke to a sergeant, had an hour's meeting with her, with other people for Police Scotland Angels, and she was deaf in one ear. I gave her, we've got wee cards we hand to them now. I says, go and look, see if you're fed or if your human resources have done a risk assessment for you to wear all this frequency around you.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So think about it. So this can actually mitigate some of their behaviour because they're actually going off their head with this going in their ear, he says, I'm here for your health. I says, listen, pal, I'm not convinced. You've got Tetra going through your blood-brain barrier and you've got a 10 pence mask on, so you're not here for my health. No. And that's at the front of the video. I says, so please actually stay a bit back for me because these frequencies I don't want around me, Anyway, I went on and then they seem to target me for some reason. But in every instance when I deal with the police, Richard, you will see my stance, and it's in my videos. I always sit down. So they're towering over me. And now I carry the law with me in a bag. I don't take it in phone form for them because they'll snatch a phone off you.
Right.
So they'll snatch a phone off you when you're on the field. So if you've got the law books that say, here's the 2010 Criminal Justice Scotland Act, or whatever it is, in 1995 Criminal Procedure Scotland Act, and they didn't know the law. So the thing is, as you see, here it's here. they can't argue with it. So I
Right.
carry it. It's quite heavy, but that's how I operate. Hard copies, hard books. So anyway, that day, um, and then when I got kettled that day, so they asked us to leave and then they kettled us. And I thought, okay. So I watched these people saying get common law lawyers, but there's no such thing as a common law lawyer. Um, the people who might have specialised a bit, but there's no such thing as a common law. So I was standing there. So I came forward. Now, all these police, it was frightening because it was like a biometric arrest, a set of eyes, the cap over their head. Now, in our standing operating procedures page, 6.48 of the Uniform Procedure of Police Scotland says they have not to obscure their face. So why were they doing it?
Right.
You
And
know,
again, you can
they've
point that
not
to
to.
them.
Yeah, I say so. Why are you
To,
hiding, concealing your face? Because you could assault me. How could I identify you? All they were giving you is a number, off their
yeah.
shoulder. They won't even give their name because the site data protection, So they'll not even give you their name, But they wanted my name. So
Mm.
anyway, I got kettled. So I went forward. You'll see it in the video. And I went forward and I says, this was outside the Scottish Parliament. And I says, can I ask a reasonable question? And they just, all I seen was sets of eyes. Not one of them knew what they were doing. I
Mm.
says, why are you holding us here? You asked us to leave. And I knew I was going to get arrested at that point because I was asking too many sensible questions, and they couldn't answer. And then the next thing, they came and whatever. So I had already composed a statement. I had a card with my details on it because under Section 13 in the 1995 Criminal Procedure Scotland Act, if they suspect you of a crime, you've got to give your name and address. And that's where a lot of people fail because they don't give their name and address and then they get lifted. Then they get it. So you always, if they suspect you, and they'll just say they suspect you anything, and so
Yeah.
you must give at that stage. All I've got to give is my name, address, and date of birth. That's all I have to say, you know. So I gave them a card with that on it, and then I gave them a contract, and then I phoned my solicitor friend in the months of this. I says, "Hi, Peter." I says, "I've been arrested. I've got 250 police around me." He says, "What have you done?" He thought, I says, "I was at this sort of small protest." He went, "Oh." I said, "Well, oh, as well."
Yeah.
Anyway, so I got out in 2 hours because, and I got bail conditions and I got taken up to court quite quickly, but it all got dropped. I mean, I got charged for breaking a regulation of travelling. So I says to the cop in the van, "Where did you travel to?" He travelled further than me. I says, "How were you allowed to travel?" And I
Yes.
wasn't, you
Mm.
know.
Well,
Anyway, so I got out within 2 hours, but two close friends that I made, because they were given the wrong advice and didn't give their name and address, they got sent to prison.
goodness.
They got sent to prison, and we got them out. We got them out of prison after about 4 or 5 days because they took the duty solicitor. The duty solicitor is useless, you know. So we got them out within 4 days, 5 days, you know. Um, and then we became firm friends. We all joined up and says we can't continue this now. One day I was driving along and I thought, and these things were really getting more and more fierce, Richard. They were these police tactics, they were just getting away with murder, honestly. And I thought, I've got to do something here and think. Then we made human rights cards. Human rights cards. So the human rights card says that if any acting authority approaches us, so we had our name and address at the back, so we didn't have to engage with them at all. So we all carried human rights cards after that when we went to, any protests or whatever. And then things developed for there, and then we just seen the things in the arms started to come, and then we made up medical non-consent cards after that, and then Police Scotland Angels was formulated because it was just absolutely horrendous what people were going through. And as I says, I'll reiterate earlier, I says we had these solicitors on the TV saying in their nice warm cozy Zoom, yeah,
Mm.
you can go out and protest and that, blah blah blah, and we were standing there fighting for our civil liberties and human rights, and so that's how Police Scotland Angels transpired. And we've had a few, many people when they formulate, an organisation, so we've had a few hiccups and things, but we're actually there now. We've had a sort of and things, but we've helped people who's been in psychiatric hospitals. We've helped people with councils. We've helped people in Fife. You'll see on our page as well. There's a police station that's 6 miles up the road for us. There's 4 men died in police custody in the last 7 years. So we actually got a sort of shrine made, and we hold vigils for them, and we highlight with compassion, and also continue sort of uh, taking flowers to the shrine, and the families are no further forward. That was a Shiku Bayu case. It's on our website.
Mm.
Now, this gets me on to when we were on the field with the police, is that every time the police will say, oh, just put a complaint in about us. Just put a complaint in about us. When they're acting with criminal activity, it's not about a complaint. They're acting criminally.
Yes.
So I thought, I want to know off their tongue why they keep saying, just put a complaint in about us. It's their colleagues. It's our colleagues. And so up here it's called PIRC, Police Investigation Review Commissioner. That stands for Police Interrogation Reasoning Corruption. We've got banners about that, because they are the gatekeepers for the police. We've got a freedom of information up there on our page. 40 ex-police. Now they could be, I've chucked out the force. You don't know, are employed by PIRC, rebranding themselves as investigators. So it's the police and the police.
Mm.
So you put a complaint in about them, and then they go to their pals or their colleagues and say, "You sort this out."
It's just fobbing. It's fobbing you off when they say put in a complaint, because it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not. It's never going to be listened to.
No, no. And the thing is, and they know that. They know. So I would say,
yes,
up here in Scotland, we've got a different oath to what your police take. And the oath, the Police Scotland oath says, that. And remember, stop calling these police officers. They're no officers. I say to them every time, did you take an oath an officer or an oath of a constable when I'm on the field?
yes.
Every bit of legislation you see is a police constable.
Right.
It's not an officer, because then they're working for the state.
Yes, I've heard this. Yeah, no, this is interesting, because I've heard this, and if you ask them, as I think you're about to say, are you under your oath as a constable? And then if they agree to that, then they've got to adhere to that. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I carry the oath, and I've got it here, but it's on the website as well. But
right.
I carry the oath. So I say to them when I'm on the field, can you cite me your oath? They can't.
They can't.
They didn't know it.
Well, that's ridiculous.
I says, "We've no chance then." You'll see it in some of my videos.
Yeah.
So their oath is in Scotland. Constable in Scotland are required to make the declaration given in Section 10 of the Police and Fire Reform Scotland Act 2012. I do solemnly, sincerely, and truly declare and affirm that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of constable with fairness, integrity, diligence, and impartiality, and that I will uphold fundamental human rights and accord equal respect to all people according to law.
Yes.
That
and
never
not only
happens.
do they not know it,
No,
and they're not carrying it out either.
No, so they don't know it. So we carry it. So Police Scotland Angels. Now, here's another thing about Police Scotland, is that Police Scotland refuse to wear body cameras. They say they haven't got enough money in their budget. Right?
Right.
Scotland Angels train legal observers to go on the field. So we've got the vises, we've got body cameras.
Yes, well, if you've got a phone, it's got a camera in it.
But then it comes on to, so remember, they can snatch your phone. So when they say, and now this goes, I would argue that this law, that these two laws that I'm going to cite you, the Public Order Act 1936, and that's applicable in England as well. Section 9. You're entitled to the court and any public building. Is
Right.
a court a public building?
Well, in theory it is, but I keep getting told more and more that it's a private building owned by the corporations.
Right.
But
So,
you know, the image is that it's a public building.
mhm.
It ought to be a public building.
Section 33 in the 1972 Criminal Justice Act tells you as well you're allowed to record. So when I go into the police station, I record.
Right.
They have a big, and they say, "Are you recording?" I says, because you're recording me up there. So I'm
Yes.
recording you.
Quite right.
You know?
I do. I don't go into supermarkets anymore because of the cameras. But when they first started putting them in, I would take my camera and I would do the same. And they would look at me and say, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you're filming me. I'm filming you."
So
You know.
I wear a body camera into my neck, and they get. So the last time I was in a police station for an hour, and they weren't going to take the complaint of us. And I says, right, so people don't know this. I don't know if it's applicable in England, but if the police, Section 22, the Police Fire Reform Scotland Act 2012 as well, or it may be the Criminal Justice Licence in Scotland Act 2012, but it's on our site, is that if the police don't take the police can be charged if they don't take a complaint up in
Can
Scotland.
they? If
Yes.
they don't take a complaint, they
Mm-hmm.
can be charged.
Mm-hmm. So, because now it's on our website, so it tells you. But remember, this is in Scotland, but there'll be something in England as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So now we cite that to them. But what we say is that day when they wouldn't take the complaint because they were having a 50-minute cup of tea to discuss that we were recording them, and oh, they're recording us, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, So anyway, I says, right, and I didn't know this, but it was some guy who told me, and this was very interesting. There's always a duty inspector on call. And if they won't take a complaint or do their duties, you say, right, get the duty inspector here. And they've got 2 hours to turn up.
Right.
2 hours to turn up. And then, but we got a sergeant, she came down. And that was the sergeant I was telling you that was deaf in the ear, and I believe it was for the Tetra. Now, Richard, what we have to discuss as well here, and I've got a freedom of information very recently through the Scottish court system. They are now giving you calls. Now, I got to the second stage of judicial review last year, and then they chucked me out, because I was asking too many heavy questions. But it was quite good to go to the second stage,
Right.
These WebEx hearings, are you familiar with these?
The what hearings?
WebEx.
WebEx.
Uh-huh.
Not heard of that term.
Right. So it's hearings online.
Right. Okay.
Right? Or you can phone in. Now,
so you're going to hang on a minute. Let me just get that into my head so the viewers understand that. You're saying that you're going to court, a public court, and it's online.
Yes.
So you're not in a court building that other members of the public can turn up to witness. It's online, so it's effectively a private meeting.
Right.
Online private meeting. It sounds that it would be, because how else can anybody else witness it?
Well, I came. This was passed in the pandemic. WebEx hearings, because
Right.
in case anybody caught a sneeze, they were trying to keep people.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so they couldn't come in and say, "Oh, I've got the thing," and use it as an excuse. I've got you.
But this was great for them. Now,
yeah, of course.
My argument to them was about this. I didn't go on the screen usually. I just phone in. I says, I need to identify who I'm speaking to.
Yeah. And how do they identify you?
And I says, are they competent? They may be drunk. They may be suffering. How do you know?
Exactly.
If they are fit for adjudication and who they are.
Yes.
Right? Now,
yes.
Please look at that freedom of information, because what I say, so I was told, I got thrown off somebody's case by association with somebody, and I've never really been thrown off, because they went through Police Scotland Angel's website, couldn't find anything on me, found it by a poor volunteer who was on, and used it by association by what she says about legislation. But anyway, I got thrown off a case. But in pleadings in a case that I was involved with, they says that I was disruptive, I was abusive, and he's on the phone. I says, okay, give me the recording then.
Right.
The hearing.
And they haven't got it.
We didn't record it. I says, wait a minute. I says, wait a minute. I says, Sainsbury's record us at customer service. I says, the Department of Work and Pension records us. I says, but you're telling me a court of law doesn't record these hearings? And they says, only if the sheriff deems it fit or it's a legitimate cause.
But isn't it supposed to be a court of record? I mean, isn't
Honestly,
that what they say? It's a court of record. There should be a record of it.
look, they're having the biggest laugh of all. People are thinking this is great. I'm sitting in the bath. I'm at a court hearing. Bang, bang, bang at your door in 2 weeks' time. Hi, you were at a call and we're taking your kids away. Bang, 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 we're going to take your house away. People really need to get up to speed with this.
Mm.
They really need, and this is serious, by the way, you know,
Well,
because
yes, it is serious. You've
of course
just
it's serious.
outlined if somebody's taking your children away or your house, of course, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, on my YouTube channel, there's a video there that 10 legal observers for Police Scotland Angels turned up. They were trying to take a man's house away with another white piece of paper. That was, and we stopped it. The police wouldn't come. The police, we stopped that illegal eviction, you know. But honestly, Richard, people really need to. I've watched some of your and people go, but it's a court record. Look, public galleries are things of the past in these courts. How you're not even getting in the building. So what are they concealing? They conceal themselves with their robes, and they're now not even letting you in the building, and they're not recording the hearings.
Mm.
So I went to the judicial complaints reviewer, and I says, but you've not got any jurisdiction to actually adjudicate over this complaint because was I truly at a hearing? And he went, I'm very limited in my scope of what I can do. I says, I bet you are, you know? I says, because it's the same people that you're investigating is making the rules for you, you know?
Yes.
So honestly, Richard, it's I've studied this stuff for years and years and years. I have a wealthy knowledge. I have lived experience. I have seen the law at both sides of the fence. I've been subjected to it as a child and lost in the system, and then turned my life around, and then says, right, I'm going to study this stuff. And please believe me, I was in a hearing the other day, and the party I was with, and I shouldn't have been near. Well, actually, I should because I was in the living room. I'm allowed to be in the living room. So he had phoned up the court and he says to the sheriff principal, he says, are you under your oath? She says, if you get, what was the word she says to him? If you get disruptive, I'll terminate this.
If you get, and you're just asking, are you under oath?
Mhm.
If you get disruptive,
I'll
excuse me.
terminate this, you know.
Yeah.
And honestly, Richard, so this is the way forward with the AI and the technology and that. So you're phoning. So I did get to second, and I'll put that I got to second stage of judicial review about this. I says, who am I speaking to on these lines? What this isn't the law I was taught.
Yeah.
The procedures I was taught. What's going on? And see, the more that we normalise something and make it acceptable. Now,
Yes, of course.
I was in court last year, Richard. Now, I've been to the highest civil court in Scotland myself, representing whatever I need to represent,
Mm.
twice, 3 times. Now, a sheriff had somebody in the dock. I was in the gallery. I was waiting on somebody going up to assist him. And somebody was in the dock. And remember the dock and the sheriff's at the bench, the berth
Yes.
and he says to the solicitor, right now, up in Scotland, and I don't know about England, but we've got summary sheriffs now. Summary sheriffs are just jumped up lawyers. So the Scottish government decided in 2017 that so they take a £40,000 cut in salary to be this sheriff, but they've only got limited powers of what they can, adjudicate over and blah blah blah. So the public go in and still think it's this King's Council sheriff or Queen's Council sheriff. It's a summary sheriff. And whenever I'm writing an appeal or anything, I say summary sheriff presided because it's just somebody with a wee bit more knowledge, than a lawyer. So anyway, this was a summary sheriff presiding. He gave the guy in the dock 6 points, and the solicitor says, "Oh, I don't think you can do that. It's whatever it was. And he says, just Google it then, to the solicitor. I says, I can't believe what I'm looking at here. He says, just Google it.
Just
You know,
Google it.
you know, the law, the courts that I've been in, we superior judges, lords. Now that's another thing I want to talk about. Why are we? I say to the Scottish Court Service, I am not calling the people lords. Why have you got me going into the rooms and saying my lord? It's actually taken my lord's name in vain, and I'm not overly religious. And you're asking me to rise. What have I to rise for these people for?
Hmm.
You know, why are we doing that? Rise and my lord. You know, But I have stood in front of superior judges and they've had case law books that they've referred to. And I thought, this looks part of the game. It looks great. But then when I went into that court last year and that summary sheriff says, just Google that. I thought,
Yeah,
we're at
Google
the
it.
we're at the end of a rope here. We're at the
It's
end
all
of a rope.
theatre. It's all theatre, clearly, isn't it?
You know, I'm acting for you. I'm acting. Shakespeare acting. I'm just acting. You
Mm.
know. Now, I just, when people come to us, through lived experience, we have compassion for what people have went through. You know, we have
Mm.
regular events. We've had a whole 6 months of really, really, really bad. And remember, this will be the higher up um, network that's trying to dismantle us. So they'll get people from within to try and dismantle the castle. you know. Um, every time that we go to a vigil outside a police station, I was at Police Headquarters Scotland about 2 months ago in August. They lock the station because they know we're outside.
Mm.
We're not there to cause any rowdiness or anything, but they just didn't want to be confronted with the law, because the police think they are the law. My family and the suffering, I mean, I've got a YouTube channel, you'll see it. Some of my videos I've had to take down just now because I didn't want to prejudice any proceedings I'm involved in, and I have
Yes,
to
of
do
course.
that every now and again, you know.
Right.
But um, I get the police coming to my door every 2 or 3 months. They stopped me on Christmas Day 2020. That got a million hit views. Somebody uploaded it and they says my light was neon in the car. It was the broad daylight, So I get massive harassment for the police. They've came after my family, you know. Um, One member of my family, I went to the highest Supreme Court just a few months ago. They took a member of my family at 17 days old. He wasn't even crying copyright, and then they conceded and I won that. So they took the baby at 17 days old and I wrote in, and I'm up at sometimes 3 and 4 in the morning doing defences. Now, Richard, I have to be careful as well. Some people who come to us, I only put myself in the forefront sometimes because the judiciary know me.
Mm.
They know me,
Yes.
and it could actually be detrimental for people. So I do their defences, and one of them, a girl whose kid was going to get kidnapped, he was just a young baby. And I done her defences in January for it. I says, I'll do them for you. She was self-representing, you know. Um, and the appeal sheriff says, my goodness, you've done a great job there. I says, so I did. So I did. But, you know, because sometimes it can be too, people in law, it's about their self-will and their ego. They think they're legends in their own mind,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
they
No,
do.
I can see that. Let me just, from all of what you've just told me, it's clear that with the corruption and the fraud and the way that they're carrying on, that the people need to educate themselves and know exactly what's happening. And find people like yourself who can take you through that process, because if you leave it to the last minute, it clearly is obvious that you're thrown in, you're in a situation that you've never been in before. They've all done it a million times and are very slick with how they're going to operate. And so people need to protect themselves by understanding the minutiae of how this legal system is working against ordinary people. And you've got your website with various bits and bobs to assist people, and we need more of this, don't we? We need a lot more people who've gone through it, who understand it, who can help others to battle off because it seems to me the only way that these people will step back is if the great populace are able to say, we know the score and you lot are just not operating under the law as it was originally composed.
And you know, people, as I say, you've got to remember this is human beings who've been
Yes,
battered by the system, you know.
yes,
And you know, Richard, Scots law says that they don't use Roman law. I believe that they do. And remember, the Romans went after their own people. You know, the Romans did. Now, Police Scotland, remember, they like a little giggle as well. Police Scotland, one of their databases is called Centurion. Do you know what a centurion was?
well, a soldier of the Roman
A
Empire.
head, and they persecuted Jesus. You know,
Yes,
so they like a wee giggle with some of their languages and their names and labelings of things, you know. And I can tell you something right now is that my real name's Alexandra, and it means actually in Greek or something, defender of people. You know, defender of people. And
yes,
I was gifted with my childhood. And you know, and looking back, you know, I spent years upon years trying to feeling so defective and why did all, you know, but I was given a gift and then I had the privilege to go into their system. So I can speak two languages. I can speak the street language and I can speak their language,
yeah, the
you know?
legalese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what an amazing story that you have shared with us, Sandra. I really appreciate you coming on the show. People can go. I'll put the link, as I said before, as always, in the description. People can go and have a look. It'll be interesting, actually, for those that are familiar, say, with English law and maybe Scottish law, to be able to point out where the differences are. Because people often ask me, actually, when I'm talking about things or have had a guest, is this the same in Scotland? And of course, I don't know. I'm still on a very early part in my journey to understand all of this. But clearly, from what you've been saying, we all need to arm ourselves. And I think you've come up with some amazing ideas of taking law books with you, sitting down, having the oath, what the police are supposed to be acting, and quoting it back to them or asking them if they got it. It's all good stuff that is helping people understand the situation. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us about it. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Well, there you are, ladies and gentlemen. What an amazing story. What an amazing lady, standing up for everyone and the people that she works for, and of course for her own children as well. And that's what you need. You've got to have that gumption and that fighting spirit. So big thanks to Sandra and Police Scotland Angels. Link in the description. I'll be back with more monologues and what have you. Wonderful guests. But from Sandra and myself, thanks for watching and
Thanks.
goodbye.
Thank you.